This episode contains language that is not suitable for minors. Please enjoy responsibly. And now, today's episode. So I got a lot of my cultural news from an old-timey Sunday morning show on CBS called, it used to be hosted by Charles Kuralt when we were kids. And now, now it's Jane Pauley. I got that on while I'm making pancakes and lollygagging about. And so I see a commercial come on, and it's like the 6-disc version of Get Back is coming out soon, like this week. You guys know about that or see that?
I actually did not know about it. It's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. I was like a double take because I was like, wait a second, what?
I have like a 12-disc version.
That has, yeah, I mean, I have like it's not even like. So I have the, I have the record, then I have the Glenn Johns mix, then I have the Naked mix, and you're like, at what point do you need another one? Yeah. I showed you that one recently, right, John? Didn't I take a picture of it's the Get Back. It's the, but it's like, it was a fairly around bootleg, but it's a boot,
Yeah. Then they had the one that was, because the original cover, like Tony, you know how they have the red and the blue albums, and the blue one was them posing as they did on their first album.
Yep. Okay. I had that blue one on cassette.
That picture of them older was going to be the cover of Get Back.
Oh.
That was like the whole point. It was like they're right, and then it ended up falling apart and got rehashed as Let It Be. I was actually thinking about that record the other day, going that the Let It Be album, it's almost like, does it count as a Beatles album? Like it came out after they broke up. You know what I mean? It just feels like it was the last album they made.
You're going, does it count as a Beatles?
I know, we're kicking it right off. Normally it takes an hour for us to get to this point.
It's like a throw together hash, it
was like, it was what they could stir up to like get one more like paycheck at the end, You got to explain this to me, because all I know is from that commercial I saw today, and it's the Let It Be. You explain this again. Give me a refresher.
Why are we even talking about this? Oh, that's right. It was John Lennon's birthday yesterday. So
we'll get there. Yeah.
Well, I'm already bringing it up.
I know.
Right?
Good.
So anyway,
this is the reason why the Beatles. John broke up the band, right? So this is.
I thought that was Yoko's, John.
Speaking of punchlines, but Chris, I'll let you go tell the. You want to put the historic piece of this together?
Yeah. What do you got? Oh,
I'm asking where. How does it come together? Where does it fall in the catalog?
They have done. What did they do? They did the White Album, I guess, right? So the White Album comes out, and that's their first, John's not in the studio for George's songs. I don't think he participates on a George song on that record, right?
I knew, right? The whole thing is they decided it was going to be a double record, and so they're all in separate studios, separate rooms at Abbey Road.
But it's getting ugly. It's starting it's the Ringo walks out on the sessions and stuff like that. But yet.
Ringo walks out. Wow.
And George Martin walks out on the sessions as well. And, he comes back, Ringo comes back, and it's, but it seems like it's kind of patchwork at this point. But they put out a record, and it's double record, and clearly some of the songs are, no, I don't know. Everything sounds produced to me it sounds great. Like I listened to it, the White Album today. I told you guys, for dinner.
It's production wise, it's not really a progression. You know what I mean? You kind of keep it, right? And so now it's the hey, Bob Dylan and the band are putting out these records that are, everyone's going, the Stones are even it's like everyone's going back down, right? So now. Right.
But a trip through a Lowenschon book will tell you that they worked a long time in the studio, and it's just take 23 of I'm So Tired, they did a lot, but I get it. It's still supposed to sound a little bit more stripped down.
You have John forcing Revolution 9 onto the record, like Paul didn't want it, right? George is trying to make it George Martin's trying to make it a single disc. There's not a lot of agreement, and I think that isn't that part of the reason it ends up being called the Beatles. They couldn't even
right. I mean, famously, Tony, George Harrison can't even get While My Guitar Gently Weeps onto the record at all, except for the fact that he asked Eric Clapton to come in and play with him. And like, it pretty much kind of got that track on the record. That said, like after all that's done, they decide to get back to their roots. Like, we're going to get back to our roots. We're going to try to record things live. There's going to be, Lennon tells George Martin, and the way he says it, like, it's one of those things that, like, when you hear it from John Lennon's, you're reading it, of course, and you just think that's just like John Lennon's, like, sort of flippant sort of thing. But I've also read, like, where George Martin was really hurt by it too, where he's just like, and none of your studio bullshit, none of your trickery, none of your, and Martin was like, oh, really? Like, yeah, that's what I understand anyway. But the whole idea was to get back and there it is, to get back and just play like rock and roll, like we're just a band again. And like, like the way we laid down the first tracks in, the good things that went on in Studio B back in ‑63.
And it's produced by he who cannot be named.
We're not. We have.
You're still talking about the White Album.
That's not the record they're making yet.
Okay.
This is what I'm saying. It gets sort of what the remains of what they're trying to do becomes this Let It Be record a year plus later.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, like what goes on is they decide. Not only that, but we're going to film it too. It's going to be a film. And you know what? And we're going to get up and we're going to be at the studio at at 9:00 and we're going to work. We're going to clock in 9 to 5 band, and that in reality, like just didn't happen. And
so that's where they actually move out of Abbey Road. So this is essentially starting like a day or two after Christmas of 1968, and
after New Year's, I think. But right,
there's a couple sessions that's late December, so it is between. Right. I found that kind of weird too.
So you would mean 67, December of 67,
68,
December of 68, and beginning of January of 69. So it's essentially
like in all of January 69, they go in most days. They start at Twickenham. They move to this Twickenham Studios because it's big enough to have the cameras in and all of that. Mm-hmm. And they go through. They start bringing in songs and they start doing and they shoot it. And this is famously George walks out at one point and.
Shot by Michael Loog, Oldman, Lindsay Hogg, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. Eaton Hogg, Sir Eaton Hogg.
Right, Sir Eaton, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this 6 CD disc then it's coming out because of the movie coming out. I mean, they're talking about all these bonus stuff plus dialogue. So all of the footage, they shoot something like 80 or 90 hours of footage, and so there's 80 or 90 hours of soundtrack, right? So a lot of it's chatter, but it's them doing old songs. That's how One After 909 shows up, and they do. There's like covers. I'm trying to think what they do. There's a couple Bob Dylan songs they do, but and when I say do, they don't like figure them out. They're kind of just jamming around.
They're hanging out and they're doing great. Like Tony, like if you've just discovered Besame Mucho, like then they do it again, like in 1969 in 1969, they're like goofing around in the studio and they just like, and they would just launch into a Hamburg set, and just do it, And it's not great though. That's the thing, John. Remember, like, from the Let It Be things, the original movie is just like, it's really like, as a Beatle fan, you're like, oh my God, this is really hard to watch. It just is, and then even the music is just like
sarcastic.
Like what, Like,
and so Tony, so they spend the whole, right, originally it was going to be, this was them rehearsing, and then there's going to be a live show that they're going to make the album from, and right, and then George didn't want to do the show, and then they were going to, like, they talked about going to the pyramids, and they talked about like
a Roman amphitheater, on a yacht, on
all of this stuff, and then on
finally, top of Mount Everest,
right, and they didn't like the vibe that was going on at Twickenham, so they went back to they went to the studio that Magic Alex kind of built in the basement of the new Apple offices on Savile Road. Like, they have a basement in there, and a studio in there, and so
except
go ahead.
No, except it's not ready. It's not in any kind of, the wallpaper is supposed to have microphones in it, that, the other thing, and George Martin like rolls in, 2 German like Studer 4 tracks from Abbey Road or whatever, like into the basement, and they fabricate some sort of, ad hoc recording studio.
And to try to get everyone to behave better, George brings in Billy Preston, and it was kind of like, look, I got everyone to behave when Eric Clapton was around. Let's try bringing in another guy.
On that, John, what do you got? Like, where does George? Does he go off with Bonnie and Delaney? Like, where is George that he runs back into Billy Preston? Where does that come from?
I don't know.
How does that happen again?
I just know, right? They know Billy Preston from Little Richard from the 62 or 63 tour, right?
Right.
And he was a kid, as I remember.
Him again, and to say, come to the studio.
I don't know the specifics. Yeah, but it was very much. It's like, hey, we're recording. You should come down.
Right.
Yeah. And so they, and actually, and the story goes, and Billy's like, they do these sessions, whatever, and Billy kind of doesn't go away. And they're kind of like, okay, Billy.
We were talking about that a little bit. It was like,
he's hanging
at
around.
what point, hey, Billy, because like you hear stories about how he was, he was being Yoko, he was like in on band decisions, and it was like, wait a minute. And Paul, of course, was the one who was like, hold on a second.
So Tony, this is right, and they end up, and George is like, well, why don't we just go up on the roof and do it, right? And then that's essentially how that was the best they could muster, was like walking up a couple flights of steps. But so that all ends and nothing happens with it. The only thing that happens is the single Get Back comes out in like March or something, a couple months later.
In 69, March of 69.
Yeah. And Don't Bring Me Down is on the flip. Right. And that's it. It's like, John's like, we're just shelving that shit. That didn't work. And that's when they rally and they go, and John starts doing his own stuff, right? They even do, it's just John and Paul does Ballad of John and Yoko. No other Beatles are on that one.
That's just the 2 of those guys, Tony.
Paul and John.
Okay.
Paul and John, that's it on that record.
Right. So he runs up, right? And that's kind of the story of him running off to Amsterdam to get married to Yoko. So Yoko's, is deeply involved at this point too. And, right. And then then Paul's like, George, and let's do another album like we used to. And John's like, I'm quitting the band. Like, that's it. I'll do the one more record. And Paul's like, no, you can't, blah, blah, blah. And
I think you're daft. Right. That's the, and, hey, why don't we, because Paul is doing this whole rah, why don't we? And John's like, are you fucking crazy? Like, are you fucking daft? Like, like he's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And that was,
John's running off and doing, actually, so they do Abbey Road pretty quickly, and right in the first half of the year, essentially, right? It's done because it's out in like August or.
But you would have to think, let's just think about that record. Whatever you know about it is, so you can give me the backstory, but I also look at like John probably had Come Together and a few other things. I want you, like, just because it's another ode to Yoko kind of thing, and had some things, but like the whole other side that people love the medley side of it.
Oh,
But it's totally like, just like